coming into the season. You look at what's coming, and do I think Auburn will be better? Sure. I mean, I hope. I hope they play well against Oklahoma this weekend. That seems like it might be a good opportunity for a get-right situation. I hope that they can play as well against Georgia as they did last year. I hope. But, guys, look at what's coming. Look what's coming for Auburn. I mean, look at the schedule that is upcoming for the Auburn Tigers. And I can go through it for you if you'd like. You got Oklahoma coming this week in what feels like an absolute 100% gotta-have-it situation.
On both sides,
at
too.
Georgia. I'm sorry?
On both sides, too. I mean, Oklahoma's not going to just come in and lay over. They kind of maybe in a gotta-have-it, too.
Oklahoma
so that's going to be more of a
at
fight.
A crossroads right now, but their defense is by far the best unit that's going to be playing in that game in Jordan-Hare on Saturday. Oklahoma, at Georgia, at Missouri, at Kentucky. I'm telling you, this thing could spin out of control in a heartbeat. We could be up there and looking at a possibility of a 2-6. 2-6 situation before Vandy comes to town. So they got to get right, and they got to get right fast because it doesn't get a whole lot easier right now. You're supposed to be 4-0 right now. You lose 2 games as a favorite at home on your home field in what was allegedly one of the hardest environments in college football to play in. It's just frustrating, man. It's really frustrating. And I feel for Auburn fans. I really do. You deserve better. And it stinks.
And Greg, doesn't it like add insult to injury where Arkansas didn't even go out there and have on their A+ or even B+ performance, and they still win by 2 possessions? Like, I think that's even more frustrating is the fact that not only did you played bad, you also didn't help the fact that Arkansas didn't necessarily just beat you to sleep. Like, they gave you more opportunities than probably you were warranted, and still gave you opportunities to win the ball game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I thought Arkansas actually was pretty resilient in the game. I didn't think they were elite, but I don't think Arkansas is elite. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they kind of played. I'm not saying they played their best game, but I thought they played pretty well. I mean, it would be one thing if Arkansas came in and like literally they're turning it over left and right. It's a disaster. But I mean, they didn't, like you said, they didn't play well by any stretch. Like, if I were to grade Arkansas's performance, I'd probably give them a B-, because while, yes, they did have a couple picks, there also were a couple of things that you feel decent about. I do think their defense was pretty opportunistic, but this was a result of just sheer and utter panic from 2 weeks ago. Complete panic. And it was dumb. I mean, I tried to tell you 2 weeks ago it was dumb. Told you last week it was dumb. Told you Arkansas was going to win the game. And that's the way it goes. It makes me mad. It really does. It really does make me mad. But I digress. Arkansas 3-1. Got to give them credit. Going on the road and winning the SEC is really tough. Speaking of going on the road and winning the SEC, how about Tennessee? How about the performance we see from them? Oklahoma's opener, as hostile of an environment as you'll ever find. I mean, that place was rocking. Did you guys not seem like that place
absolutely.
seemed like it was going absolutely bananas all day long, even starting in the pregame with game day and all the energy surrounding that football game. That felt like it was different, did it not?
Oh, yeah. Like, it felt like the magnitude of the ball game, it felt like a top 10 matchup. It really did. And then the game got on, and you realized that.
To be fair, it was top 15, so the atmosphere was electric.
Norman was welcoming.
Then it was opening kickoff, and that was it.
Yeah. And then you had to watch Jackson Arnold, and that's when it all went down. You know. Yeah. Do feel bad for Oklahoma to kind of play the way they played. I think they're better than that offensively. I really do. But I also think Tennessee is just that good defensively. I really do. I think they're that good. We'll ask Paul Finebaum about it. We have so much more to unpack on Tennessee, Oklahoma. We have more to unpack on Auburn. I would love to have gotten Cole's take on Auburn today, but he is out. So hopefully we can get his take when he returns. I think it's Wednesday, whenever that day comes. But it is going to be very, very exciting to see what happens with Auburn here moving forward. It's one of the more dramatic situations in the sport. But there is not a lot of drama at Tennessee right now. They're just flat out good. We'll ask Finebaum. Just for the record, guys. All right. I just need everybody to know where I'm at right now. All right.
Oh yeah, you were. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, took Vince to the Falcons Chiefs game last night. First NFL game.
All right.
It was awesome. Great experience. Really, really cool. Got to see a lot of great people that good friends and buddies, and it's hilarious. Like the Falcons coaching staff are like, it's like my group of counselors at the Manning passing camp. It's like so it's fun.
So it was a reunion for you.
It's just fun, man. I mean, yeah, my buddy, one of my best friends is the OC. Thought he called a pretty good game too, by the way. One of my good buddies is the quarterback coach. I didn't even know he was there, frankly. I didn't even see until he was on the field. I was like, you got to be kidding me, TJ. What are you doing here? So just super cool to see those guys. And then it was an amazing experience. Take your son to an NFL game. It's great. He got to see his favorite player, Mahomes, and he got to, go on the field. Like, it was just a really cool experience for him. But Falcons fall last night, but I did not get home, burying the lead, did not get home until after 1 o'clock in the morning. Totally worth it. Seriously, would do it again. Would do it again. No doubt about it. But the voice is a little groggy, and I'm probably going to have a couple of slips of the tongue, like pine Paul bomb, like I had just a moment ago. So just bear with me
Did Vince have a good time?
Oh, Vince had a blast. Like the amount of candy and junk food consumed from Buc-ee's on. So we left at like 1:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, from like 1:50 all the way through when we arrived at 1 o'clock. It was a remarkably unhealthy day, but it was terrific. We had an absolute blast, and he had a really good time. So really cool, great father-son experience, and those atmospheres, Falcons games, pretty awesome, man. Like, highly recommend it. Really, really cool. People were into it. People were getting after it. I mean, there were a ton of Chiefs fans there, but really a great experience for us yesterday as we were able to go take in some football together. We will also take in football together this weekend, going to Bama, Georgia. Got my assignment. I'm doing Ole Miss, Kentucky. I'll be done by 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm going straight to Tuscaloosa, baby. Going to go fan out. So I'm excited about that as well. All right, speaking of fan out, we're going to go fan out with our friend Paul Finebaum, get his take on what transpired here in week 4 of the college football season next on Jocks 94.5. Welcome back. Greg McElroy here along with you on a Monday. Appreciate you guys being here. We welcome in the mouth of the South. I think we need to come up with a new nickname for Paul. I'm gonna have to think about that. And Pine is not gonna work. Finebaum is not gonna work. We'll come up with something though. I'm not sure exactly what. But let's go to him now. He's Paul Finebaum. Joins us every week. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. Paul, there are 7.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, I'm just so angry right now about the Auburn situation. I can't even see straight. I'm honestly obviously not an Auburn fan, but I'm very frustrated by the handling of the quarterback situation. I feel like both quarterbacks have been put in a difficult spot. I felt like it was a complete panic move to bench Peyton Thorne to begin with, and here we are. So they're at a 2-2 at a crossroads with 4 extremely losable games right in front of them. What is going on right now on the Plains?
Well, Greg, I'd love to try to help you with that, but considering that the head football coach doesn't seem to know what's going on, I think we're all going to have to wait for him to give us some direction. And I agree with you about the panic move. It came at an odd time. It felt forced by someone other than the coaching staff, and those are things that always send off red flares. I can't be any more concerned about not only this season, but the future of Auburn football right now. And it's not just the reality of the situation, which is on the field. It's this growing perception that this thing is coming undone. And I realize where I'm about to go is unrelated to the X's and O's. But when your former quarterbacks goes on social media, Bo Wallace over the weekend, and calls you out and says that you have a history of throwing quarterbacks under the bus. And I'm speaking of what Bo Wallace said about Hugh Freeze. And then you post that you wouldn't let your own son play for him. You have just been married to a social media post that you will never be able to outrun. Because Hugh Freeze primarily has made a career off of that Bo Wallace win in 2014 and the win the next year. And then this morning, just one of many that you begin to hear, a columnist in USA Today essentially compared Hugh Freeze to Jimmy Swaggart and has called the program a cesspool. So, I mean, that's the noise. And then you've got a situation with Oklahoma coming in, which is not a great team, but has close to an elite defense, Greg. And if you don't win this game and stop the bleeding, your season literally is going to spiral out of control. And that's not what you want at Auburn, where you have quick trigger boys upstairs who sold their soul to get you the job, and now you're disappointing them and everyone else.
Well, I think what you kind of alluded to it is that, I mean, you listen to what his comments were after the Cal game, and he was kind of supportive of Peyton Thorne and all this. And then all of a sudden the week goes on, he has this complete 180, and I don't understand how it happened. He was like, well, we couldn't block him. And then all of a sudden it's all on his quarterback 2 days later. And then all of a sudden he's giving guys 9-clip quizzes when they're sitting there and asking them what to do. Like, is that, if we're doing that, and that's like, that's what it takes to win a starting job, I would have been the starting quarterback of the Cowboys. Like, I mean, because I'm good in the classroom, but on the field matters a little bit more. So, I mean, what I just don't understand, Paul, like, did he make this decision? Like, because he kind of insinuated that there was maybe bigger powers at be.
That's Greg. Let me introduce you to Auburn football, okay? I mean, it's never. I mean, if you have a mind of your own, you're probably not going to be there very long. And I think Hugh Freeze probably. This is supposition here. I'm not in Auburn. I will be there this week, so I'll be able to at least give you that much. What what I think happened, this is an opinion, somebody told him, let's move on from Peyton Thornton, because that did not seem like the guy who had said everything that he said about the portal and Peyton Thorne and had backed him after the loss. So somebody else is calling the shots. And by the way, whoever that somebody else is, I would like them to get out of the program, because they're not doing a very good job. This program really is in turmoil right now. And I know those sound like actionable words, but I'd like Hugh Freeze to address that. I'd like him to explain in clear, concise English why he made that decision. I think it was on a Tuesday, wasn't it, Greg? You're gonna have to help me on that. But that seems like a rather strange time to be playing quarterback shuffling games.
It is. We've spent the first 27 minutes of the show on a team that's 2-2, so I apologize for our national listeners. But I'm very bothered by what's gone down. I don't think it's fair to anybody, and it's frustrating. But the number 5 team in the country now, the Tennessee Volunteers. Paul, I'm trying really hard not to be a prisoner of the moment. I think they're a national championship contender. I really do. I think with you defending that way, and you have a defense that can take over the game multiple times. And I know Oklahoma has challenges. There's no denying that Oklahoma is a flawed football team. But based on what you saw from Tennessee this past weekend, have your expectations changed?
Dramatically. I mean, they've gone from 5 weeks ago to what I thought was a fringe team, a 9-3, maybe with an upset, 10-2, but they would need a big upset. Now they're, in my mind, clearly in the playoffs. And we're not talking about a one-shot deal. I mean, this is a team that can play into mid-January. That means they're a national championship contender. What strikes me even more is the fact that in the 2 biggest games they've had so far, which, again, I don't mean to devalue NC State, but I will, and now Oklahoma. They made mistakes offensively, fumbles, bad decisions, but they survived them because of the defense. And I'll spare the audience the cliches, but a defense like this can take you a long way, especially if you've got skill position players on offense, which they do. And if they can start to eliminate mistakes, this is going to be a very difficult team to beat.
They're excellent. Really, really good watch. I think their quarterback's only going to get better. And the fact that we are centering the conversation around Nico almost every week, it's like, guys, watch the team. Like, Nico's good. He's fine. He's solid. But watch the team around him, and that's where they go from good potentially to great. And who knows? Maybe in a few weeks we'll be saying the E word, elite, which is not one that I throw around very often. On the other side, Oklahoma. Wind out of the sails type of performance. You just feel bad for him, frankly. But there's still feel like a lot of goodwill. But my goodness, they got problems on offense, and those will not easily be solved. So, how high is your concern level for the Sooners?
Oh, it's very high. And I had some people out there this spring tell me, listen, we're probably 7-5, 8-4. And I wanted to believe they were better. Maybe some of that, Greg, was just, we were all part of the bang the drum slowly promotion of Oklahoma coming into the SEC, but they're not better. This really is a big game for them against Auburn. And I don't know to how many more people this is a big game, but if Oklahoma could get a win in Jordan-Hare, I think it would travel really far for them. It's a swing game that maybe takes them from a middling season to a season where you can look back and go, okay, we're now in a position to break the door down with a few elite players offensively. So I know a lot of people are, and rightfully so, all eyes are on Tuscaloosa this week, and they should be. But the most meaningful game of the year might be in Auburn, because Oklahoma can probably get right. And Auburn can't do anything but maybe throwing up on itself.
Paul Finebaum joining us here. I can't even imagine what the reaction will be like on your show this whole week. I would imagine the calls rating in from Athens and from Tuscaloosa will be plentiful. So I know we're 5 days out, and I know Monday's a day to react. but I don't want to ask you about Missouri, Vandy. I'm sorry. I just don't.
Please. Thank you for that.
Georgia Southern, Ole Miss. Any thoughts there, Paul? I can't imagine that you do. So might as well spin it forward. Let's talk a little bit about Bama, Georgia. Kalen DeBoer's first opportunity to play an SEC game. And hey, all things so far, I think, have been terrific. You've had about everything that you could possibly want. You even had adversity in the first 3 games, albeit minimal and kind of self-created adversity, but you had it nonetheless, and you responded beautifully. So I lean Bama early in the week. Just full disclosure, I do think their young secondary is a bit of a question mark. But Paul, how big is this game in college football? How big is it for Kalen DeBoer? How significant is it, frankly, for Kirby Smart? Now that Nick Saban's gone, it's like, well, hey, Nick Saban's gone. He was the one that had you, all but one game in the time that y'all met up. And now Kalen DeBoer's in town. You lose to him. That could be a significant fallout. So all the tentacles of this game are enormous, Paul. But do you have any significant takeaway or a question that you feel like absolutely needs to be asked?
I mean, you said the word earlier, prisoner of the moment. I think that is where we are right now, whether real or not, on Alabama. I'm the same way. 2 weeks ago, I was thinking this could be a really bad moment for Alabama. Now I think the other thing has arrived, and quite frankly, I mean, you can debate who the pressure's on. To me, it seems like it is on Kirby Smart, because if he can't beat Kalen DeBoer with a team that's already a little bit on the brink after once again being declared the national champion before the season, and the schedule. I mean, nobody's got a tougher road schedule with a loss to Alabama than this bunch, with Texas and Ole Miss still to come. You're talking about dangerous territory right now, where Alabama, I think, the transition by Kalen DeBoer, outside of maybe the first 4 or 5 days when chaos reigned, has been about as smooth as I've ever seen. And by the way, that includes Nick Saban. He took over a terrible program. Kalen DeBoer took over a really good program and has maintained it. I don't know if it's any better or not, but we'll be hearing that with a win Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, transitions of power from one president to the other, even within the same party, haven't been this smooth. I mean, this is just
no.
I mean, and look, it's. I mean, seriously, like 1988. I mean, transitioning from Reagan to Bush wasn't this smooth. I mean, it really is amazing. I could not be more impressed with what I've seen from Kalen. And I think, too, their identity that they're developing offensively has me feeling very bullish on where they're at the moment. I think they are now acknowledging Jalen Milroe for what he is. Like, he's going to run it. He's going to throw it. I think we're going to see a much better version of Georgia than what we saw 2 weeks ago, but it's hard not to say that the pressure's on the Bulldogs. I think it absolutely is, and the 12-team playoff now allows you and affords you the opportunity to screw up and still be in it. But I think the narrative surrounding Kirby Smart's program could be significant in the event in which they come up short. Am I overreacting?
No, I think you're right on, and perception is not how football games are won or lost, but it is how the conversation goes all week long. And right. and I think there's a theory out there that Kirby couldn't be happier. He's rubbing his hands together, but that's a flawed theory, because this game has been circled for Georgia since last December. They didn't. Nobody in that locker room needed an ounce of motivation, whether it's a bad performance or not. But there is doubt now about the program, and I don't know how that's good. Listen, Carson Beck still has the same issues. He lost one of his best players up front. That's big. He's got defensive players on the other side of the ball banged up. There's confusion about this team, and you're going to the most obvious place not to ever find the solution to your problem, and that's Bryant-Denny Stadium. So I don't think the preseason predictions matter. I don't think the pregame predictions matter. I think the flow of this game is critical for Georgia, especially early on. If they start the way they started against Clemson or against Kentucky, they're going to lose the game.
Paul, tremendous stuff, buddy. The next 7 days on your show is going to be appointment listening, appointment viewing. just try not to stoke the fire too much early in the week, Paul. Just slow and steady wins the race, right?
You think it's fair to have Brian Harson on today? No, it's probably not. Anyway,
Oh my God. That qualifies as stoking the fire, Paul. And with that, yeah, you know what? We can probably call. Hey, Saber, call Brian. Let's have Paul ask him a couple questions on our show. That'd be great. Paul, great stuff, buddy. Look forward to watching your show today, and we look forward to listening to you on the radio today because I know it's going to be just electric on the phone lines here the rest of the way.
thanks, Greg. See you next week.
All right, Paul Finebaum joining us here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. What's your reaction? We haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. I've seen a couple of you on hold already. I feel like I should have taken I feel like before I said hello today, we should have taken 3 calls. But had to get a couple things off our chest. Had to hear from Hugh Freeze. Had to hear from Paul Finebaum. But now it's time to hear from you. 205-834-9450. Text line is open as well. If you're driving, don't text. And if you have your kids in the car, that's fine. I want their reaction too. I want everybody to weigh in on what we saw this past weekend. How impressive is Tennessee? How are we feeling if we're Oklahoma? I don't care if we're moving ahead. I'll talk Bama, Georgia today. You think I haven't broken that game down already? I have. We are good to go there. And really, wherever you want to take the conversation, I really don't care. Cole's out, so y'all be my co-host alongside Damian and Saber. We'll have some fun with that, and we'll take your phone calls. 800-239-9569, right? Saber?
Yes, that's correct. 1-800-239-WJOX.
Oh, look at you. Pro's pro. 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. Or you can text the line here locally, 205-834-9450. Your reaction right here on McElroy and Cubelic next. Welcome back to McElroy and Cubelic in the Morning, Jocks 94.5. Moving into some of your phone calls. We look forward to talking with you. 800-239-9569, 205-834-9450. Before we get there, I'm going to tell you about my friends at Crocker Moving Service, a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests every single employee. These are good guys. And you can trust them in your home. When they need your whole home packed to move, your company headquarters across the country, or you just want to come rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you purchase and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website, CrockerMovingServices.com. That's CrockerMovingServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Services for your next move. Blake in Odenville will kick things off. Blake, talk to me, my friend. How are you?
Greg, how are you?
You know what? To be honest with you, Blake, I'm a little frustrated right now.
Hey, trust me, as an Auburn fan, I could not be more frustrated as you. You being a former Alabama quarterback, trust me, I'm freaking frustrated. Here's where my frustration.
Well, here's my thing, Blake.
into
Here's
play.
my thing. Like, does this not, just before you tell me why you're frustrated, does this not feel like it was kind of an avoidable situation? We'll just start there. This feels like it was kind of avoidable, was it not?
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by avoidable?
I just felt like this could have been avoided if Hugh Freeze would have stuck to his gun and said, hey, Peyton Thorne's our guy this year. I'm not saying that he's the best option in the world at the position, but he's better than what we have. And I know you guys want to see a different guy. I get that, but like, he's the best guy we have. We tried him every day in practice. He's the best guy we got. So, hey, it might not be that we might not have the prettiest day to the dance, but we got to dance with who brung us, right? And I don't know. It just feels like it was an avoidable situation.
Okay, to an extent, I see your point. Okay, but when you throw four interceptions in a game against New Mexico, I'm sorry, it was against California, not New Mexico.
Yeah, I got you.
Throw four. It doesn't matter who it was against. You throw four interceptions, and they were egregious interceptions. That's not good. You know what I mean? But I see your side. I see your point in that. And okay, so the four interceptions were thrown, so now we have to panic, or do we? Or do we have to panic? And I also see your point in somebody else had a play or a say behind what needed to happen after that. That somebody has always been there and unfortunately will always be there making those decisions regardless of who the head coach is, regardless of who the quarterback is. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's a problem. That's a major problem. Okay? So now you look at this game, 3 interceptions happened after the move was suggested. We've got 10 turnovers in our 2 losses. 10 turnovers. That's a problem. If you cannot control the ball, whether you're the quarterback or you're the running back, that's the other issue that I have. Everybody puts the blame on the quarterback, but the running back has got half of the responsibility of those turnovers. Nobody's talking about the running backs. Everybody's talking about the quarterbacks. That's a freaking problem, Greg.
Yep.
My problem with Auburn football, and I'm a huge Auburn football fan, is the boosters that are involved, that have always been involved, and will always be involved until something happens. I'm just sick and tired of it because it's the same old every freaking week, every freaking year. Everybody wants to put the blame on the coach. Everybody wants to put the blame on the quarterback. It's not that simple. Alabama went through this for years, and they finally smartened up and said, we can no longer do this anymore. They hired Nick Saban, the greatest thing to have ever happened to Alabama football since Bear Bryant. They're still reaping the benefits of that by making that decision that it's no longer going to be a booster-decided program. It's going to be a coach and player program. Auburn don't understand that, and that's what pisses me off the most as an Auburn fan. It's the same crap every single year, the same issues every single year, and I'm just sick and tired of it, man.
I get it, man. I get it, Blake. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the phone call, man. I wish I could help make you feel better. I wish I could. You know, and here's the problem. The modern day college football, you need those checks. Like, you need people with deep pockets and lots of influence to write those checks. But it doesn't mean that those people get to call the shots. And that is a very difficult thing to try to create, where, hey, yeah, you can contribute, you can help, but you don't have any say. So you are blindly supporting our program, but the buck stops with me. And that is of concern, because I don't know how you create that environment when it's been a certain way for a very long time. Auburn right now, 14 turnovers on the season. 14 turnovers. That leads college football. That leads college football. They are minus 10 in the turnover margin. That is the worst in the sport. Do you know who they're tied with? Temple. Temple.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Whew.
OWLCH. Should I have left that one on the draft stand?
Ouch.
It's just sickening, man. It really is. And I feel bad for everybody involved. I feel bad for Auburn. And the reason why I'm bummed, because I want the Iron Bowl to be the biggest game in the sport. Personally, I am one of those Alabama fans that roots for Auburn. Want to know why? Because I want both teams to be 11-0 and for the Iron Bowl to be the centerpiece of college football. Well, it ain't happening this year. And it's going to get darker before it gets dawn. Because if you look at what's coming, if they don't get this one, this week against Oklahoma, against a team that's also reeling, oh boy. The next two, at Mizzou, at Georgia, you could be staring 2-5 in the face. And then you got to go to Kentucky. And if there's one thing we know about Kentucky, they're going to fight. They might not be the most naturally gifted team with 30 pros on it, but they're going to fight you to the death. And if your offensive line can't block them, good luck with Deion Walker and co. It's going to be tough sledding. All right, when we come back, top three from Damian. We're also going to do top three from Damian a little later, too. He's going to do a double-up top three because we got some NFL takeaways that we'll do a little later in the show, but I want just some off-the-wall dumb top three. I'm in too bad of a mood right now with where things are for Auburn football. The one thing that does have me feeling great was watching the Tennessee tape did make me feel very good. I'm like, defense is back, guys. I love it. I absolutely freaking love it. We'll break down Tennessee in 10 minutes. But next up, top three, Damian Mitchell, right here on Jocks 94.5. I think Cole's traveling today. That's my guess. I think he's traveling. He wanted another night at home, so he traveled this morning to go do the SEC show and is missing the Monday show. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5. Emotional music here.
Oh,
I like
they
it.
run.
Yeah, this is sad. I mean, it's a sad day.
Midnight.
Auburn's 2-2. We haven't seen Bama play in 9 days. Just sad.
Can't go wrong with
You
Johnny,
know?
though. Can't go
This
wrong
is
with
it. You can't ever go wrong here. We see you on hold. We are coming to you. Just hang with us, okay? I promise we will get to your phone calls. I promise you. You just got to be patient. Everybody dropped their kids off. Now they're like, all right, it's time to unload. So we're going to get to you, I promise. But before we do, Damian, top 3, where are we going?
We're going to the NFL. And takeaway number 3. We're going to work our way from 3 to 1 because I think.
Because he didn't listen to you.
That's fine. We'll do it now.
He did not listen to you.
We'll do it now.
We're working our way from 3 to 1 because number 3, the Tennessee Titans have proven they made the wrong decision at quarterback. After
don't do that.
Listen. I have to get this off my chest. We're gonna let Auburn fans have their moments. I gotta have mine because the Tennessee Titans fall to 0-3. Fall to 0-3 after Malik Willis has his resurgence, I guess you would say, to his former team to show that, hey, maybe you made the wrong decision. Understand business is business, but they knocked off the Tennessee Titans to the tune of 30-14. And it's going to be a long year for the Tennessee Titans. Takeaway number 2, in a game that you were at, Gregory, the Kansas City Chiefs are 3-0, but it may be one of the ugliest 3-0s that we have seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes and that offense, they're not as dynamic as they have been. Travis Kelce for my fantasy team continues to let me down for the first 3 weeks of the season, but that's neither here nor there. And takeaway number 1, Sam Darnold actually may be a good quarterback.
No, don't get fooled.
Yeah.
Don't get fooled.
Here we go.
He may actually be a good quarterback. They knock off the Houston Texans 34-7 yesterday. Sam Darnold, 17, 28, 181, 4 of them things for touchdowns. So, trending upward for some other teams. Some not so much. Some not
Titans.
so much.
Titans dicey right now.
Dicey?
Rank them. Titans, Auburn. Who's feeling better today?
Vanderbilt.
It's not good.
Listen, the Titans, unlike the Titans, Auburn actually has wins on their record. So,
All right, your call is coming up next on Mac and Cube. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning, Jocks 94.5. Great first hour of the show. If you missed any of it, you can go check it out on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Mac and Cube, like, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. The other thing I would tell you, too, I mean, Paul Finebaum, he's wearing out Auburn for sure, understandably. We have not had enough of a chance to go deep into the Tennessee Volunteers performance. We will, I promise you. Full breakdown of that game coming up momentarily. We're just putting out a couple fires first. Couple fires internally with Auburn faithful. Know that it's going to be all right. We're going to figure it out. And you got to know, too, that Train's testing facility, their engineers constantly are pushing products to the limit to ensure they're ready to handle extreme summer conditions, like the heat we have continuing here in the Deep South. Now, if you can make it through that rigorous testing, you'd never see the Train badge on it. That's why Train is the most reliable brand amongst consumers. Learn more at train.com. It's hard to stop a train. The other thing I'd tell you, too, is the text line right now is going absolutely berserk. Damien,
It is.
give us the goods, my friend.
All right. We have someone that texts in and says Vandy may have a good chance to beat Auburn as well as they played against Mizzou. So we've gotten to the point where Vanderbilt is a better program right now than
Vandy played their hearts out this
They
past
did.
weekend, man. Like, felt bad for them that they couldn't ultimately get done. I mean, how about not being able to make a short little chip shot field goal to extend it to second overtime? Or I guess it would have been third overtime or whatever. But feel bad for them. But, man, they are much better. You got to give Clark Lee and that group credit. Diego Pavia gives them the run element at quarterback. Like, he's done a lot of nice things for him as well. Like, considering they lost some top playmakers to the portal, you got to feel real good if you are Vandy and you're a fan of the Doors.
Yeah, we also have someone text in. It says, who would have thought that the Oklahoma versus Auburn game would be for bowl eligibility? Because the loser ain't going bowling.
I mean, seriously, like, as crazy as that sounds, it's like not as far outside of the realm of possibility as humanly possible. Like, I think if you look at Oklahoma's schedule moving forward, they're going to get some folks just because of how good they are on defense. But there's a real chance they could lose 3 in a row. And then you got South Carolina coming to town, and we know how South Carolina is on defense. Then you go to Ole Miss. I mean, we talked about Auburn losing 4 in a row or 5 in a row, and all of a sudden you look up and they're 2-6. If Oklahoma doesn't get this one, you got Texas and Ole Miss that bookend a date with South Carolina. And South Carolina is no slouch right now. So, yeah, I mean, this is a gotta have it a little bit for the Sooners as well.
Especially when they end the season Missouri, Alabama, LSU.
Yes.
Good luck.
Right. I have a text message that says Auburn boosters like Jerry Jones with the Cowboys. I think the pockets are a little
Well,
different.
they can find their way to the postseason.
Jerry Jones owns the team. It's like he's allowed to do whatever he wants. Boosters don't own the team. Like, it's different. It's a different setup here in college. At least I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. What next?
Yeah, we have Auburn Turner. He says Coach Freeze nailed it in one word: miserable. It's been miserable to be an Auburn fan for a while. He says I also had to suffer Saturday and Sunday every week because I'm an Auburn fan and a Titans fan. Double misery. Sorry.
Hang in there. Pray for that guy. All right. Where else?
Let's see. If I see one more offense try to run off the tackle with 8 down linemen, I'm going to go off the deep end. That play has not worked since the NFL started in 1919, and that's Dave in Hoover.
There's a place for it. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to necessarily. You got a lot of gaps to account for. Like, I don't think it's like the worst play in the world. Now, situationally, there's some times where I don't like seeing it, but there's a place for that in the sport. I don't know if that's a takeaway from this weekend, but I appreciate the sentiment and the next level ball analysis.
Yeah, and we have Greg. The only way the boosters get the message is when Jordan-Hare is 60% empty and the fans stop going. Then the AD can say we should have hired Cadillac. Auburn needs a coach that loves the Plains, not just himself.
Hang on a second. All right, let's not get carried away here.
Just read the text.
Come on. Come on. I mean, golly, what are we doing? Where's Cadillac now? Like, I mean, come on, man.
Any running backs coach at the Rams, I believe.
Yeah.
He's in the NFL. Yeah.
He's in the NFL.
Yeah.
Correct. And we don't need to go into why he's in the NFL, but he's in the NFL. So, like, come on. Stop. The Cadillac, it's difficult to take over the job, like, no doubt. And, like, yeah, he did a good job of invigorating the fan base, for sure. And the guys played hard for him down the stretch. It's not for a lack of effort on Auburn. It's a lack of execution. So I think the frustrating thing has nothing to do with Cadillac. It has everything to do with the fact that it appears like a change of heart that was had in the midweek about who should be starting at quarterback. Where it came from, I don't know, but it was a bad decision. Simple as that.
Yep, because we have somebody that texts in and says that Peyton Thorne should have never been pulled.
I agree.
Wow, it's almost
and I know
as if
we look at the
someone's been saying
four
that.
interceptions. We look at the 4 interceptions, and I know. You look at the box score; it's terrible. It's terrible. But if you look at the game tape itself, not all interceptions are created equally. Like one was with 30 seconds left, backed up, had to make a play. One, he's getting hit, and the ball pops up in the air, it gets picked. One's off his receiver's hands because the receiver stops running on a slant. And then one I thought was pretty good defensive play. So yeah, I'll give him that one for sure. I just don't think the interceptions are all created equal. And Hugh Freeze defended him early, only to change course a day and a half later, and then put him on a quiz by watching 9 clips and tell me who had the right answers in the clips.
I like what you said, like the multiple choice.
You want to start at Auburn? You want to get started at Auburn? Let's just take multiple choice tests now. Who knows the offense best? Who can say the play without stuttering better? Like what? I mean, that's what. Like, is that what we need to do? Like, what are we doing?
Listen, man.
Is there anybody else is there anybody that we're concerned about on the text line that like we just don't want them to quite go off the cliff? Like we just need to make sure that they're okay.
Well, it doesn't help that Damian's wearing an Arkansas shirt today.
Listen, it's not. Auburn could have stopped. Auburn could have controlled this. They could have done this. I would have never thrown this shirt on. Auburn would have won the ball game. Mm-hmm. And also, I picked Auburn to win too. So
okay, so even more. Okay, all right.
It just kind of sucks. They'll be all right.
Was I the only one that took Arkansas this past weekend?
You were indeed.
Yeah.
You were indeed.
Golly.
Although I did say that it was going to be turnover fest.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That happened in a span of like 3 seconds.
Correct. Yeah. And the crazy thing was in this game, you saw that just like we saw in the Cal game about the interceptions. Peyton Thorne did have 1 interception, but that was off his receiver's hands. It hit him in the hands, and you can't blame him on that. Meanwhile, Hank Brown's last interception, he let him too much. He couldn't. It was too far in front of him. Went right to the receiver. It looked virtually the same play, except Peyton Thorne got it there. Hank Brown didn't, and yet everyone was ready to throw out Peyton Thorne because he had 4 interceptions. Well, this showed you like, well, maybe you shouldn't have.
Well, hindsight's 20/20. Hopefully they can get it back on track. Let's go to Chris in Birmingham. Chris, what's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. Oh, what a good weekend. Man, what a good weekend, especially for that Auburn football team. Because I disagree with you wholeheartedly, Greg. It's always good when Auburn loses. Because well, you got to
keep in mind where I'm coming from. I'm, I host a radio show in Birmingham, Alabama that I think the world would listen to if both teams were 11-0. We'd have people listening in Istanbul if Auburn and Bama were 11-0. But yeah, I mean, I do want them to. I got plenty of Auburn buddies. I want them not to be miserable, but man, it's hard to do it. That's for sure.
I need a cup for them tears. I need them. But here's the kicker though. I mean, when I think of Auburn, I still say that Thorne should have stayed the QB. But honest God truth, it's really just I feel something I saw in the live chat in the morning show earlier that really stuck with me. When is Auburn really gonna just stick to their recruiting talent and develop them? Because the last person I can think that stayed around there was Bo Nix, and he left within 2 years. You see how he turned out, and instead of them having to constantly go to the portal and try to find this all-star player to save the program, instead of just working with what you got, and you get on working in your own barons. And one thing for sure I can say is this. You say the Iron Bowl won't be competitive this year. It will. It always is. It is, Greg. Despite when either teams are down, that's the Iron Bowl. But other than that, have a good morning, gentlemen. Y'all take care.
Go Eagles.
Appreciate it, man. Not that Never said it wasn't going to be competitive. Said that it's not going to be the center of the college football world. That's the unfortunate thing. I want it to be the center of the college football world. I want our state to be on the map, and I want it to be hosting game day and be all eyes on us. But it ain't going to happen if Auburn's limping in there 3-8. But we'll see how it goes. Let's go next to AJ in Florida. AJ, what's happening?
Hey, Greg. Great talking to you. I agree with the previous caller. We can Istanbul we don't have to have Istanbul listeners. I'd rather have Auburn lose every game they play.
Big college football town, Istanbul. Big.
Which brings me to the point of my call. And I have the same feeling this year that I have had in the last several years. We have got to get the Iron Bowl moved to September. If we could play the September version of Auburn, they would never win a game. And but they're going to have the whole year. Just like the previous guy said, by the time they get they're going to have something figured out, and they're going to be hooping and hollering, and it'll be a competitive game. And just like what you had to deal with, Greg, we national championship team. And we go down there in 2009, and they give us all we want. If it wasn't for you and Julio and Upchurch on the last drive, the season was going to be ruined. But that's them. But I would love to have it moved to September because they can't. They're terrible in September. Hey, Greg, I got a question for you. I've always wanted to ask you this: national championship game, 2010. What was the deal with that fake punt on the first drive of the game on 4th and 14? I've always thought that was the craziest thing that happened, and nobody talks about it because, of course, we won. But that was nuts. Why did we run a fake punt on the first drive of the game on 4th and 14 against Texas?
I didn't even know a fake punt was in the plan. So I'm probably the wrong guy to ask, AJ, to be honest with you, because I, as the quarterback, didn't sit in on punt meetings. But from what I gather, there was a look that I guess Texas had where Dre Kirkpatrick would have been uncovered to the left-hand side. I think they had that look, and then all of a sudden he was covered. So I think that's what went down, but I was as shocked as you were. We had a tough start to the game where they got us, and we kind of got behind the sticks a little bit. Ended up punting away, no big deal. But, yeah, I'm like, what was that? How did they get it at the 40? And sure enough, it's an interception thrown by the punter. The other thing I would say is all the Texas fans that say, oh, yeah, we just moved it right down the field on the first drive. Oh, yeah, you moved it 30 yards. Congratulations. If Colt doesn't get hurt, yeah, guess what? You run your quarterback, that's what happens. I hate to break it to you. So that's the way it goes. I don't know, though, AJ. I apologize. I wish I could help you out. We'll have PJ Fitzgerald on the show at some point and have him explain what the call was, what the look was. Let's break here. We're going to get back to Auburn, but I do want to do a deep dive on the Tennessee Volunteers and just all the different ways that game impressed me about Tennessee, because it was more than just what they did offensively and defensively. There was a lot more to the story there, and we'll hit it next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5. That cold weather is coming at some point. I don't know when, but it is coming, I can assure you. So before that cold weather arrives, you want to make sure you get the correct nutrients and pre-emergence set in your lawn for the dormant season. That's why you need to call our friends at Wayne's. Their EnviroLawn technology will make sure that you get everything you need so that that lawn next spring is beautiful, lush, and weed-free. You sign up for Wayne's Lawn Service today, and you're going to get the first month free by going to callwaynes.com. Use the offer code JOCKS. You also can call them at 866-WAYNES1. That's offer code JOCKS. You get the first month free. So don't let that lawn go untreated before the cold weather arrives and it goes into dormant season. You want to make sure it's ready to roll, because first thing next year, when that spring weather starts to arrive there around March, you want to be able to play outside and enjoy that lush, weed-free lawn. So call them today, 866-WAYNES1. Visit callwaynes.com and let Wayne's continue to create your happy place. All right. Tennessee. Now, this was not the vintage score 50 game that we have become accustomed to seeing from Tennessee at times. You know, let's just be real. A couple years ago, Tennessee was very comfortable playing and winning games 52-49. Now, it wasn't ideal. Nobody wants that level of stress, but the defense at that point was a little bit more of a, hey, bend, don't break. You know, we're going to score offensively, so just do your best, force a couple turnovers, and let's call it a day. But now things have flipped on its head. You look at what happened this past week, and Josh Heupel, we all know where Josh Heupel is as a coach, whether it was his time at Oklahoma, his time at UCF, and his early years at Tennessee. Like, we know that he's a guy that wants to be super aggressive. He's going to be a guy that strongly considers going for it on fourth down, especially in plus territory. He's going to be a guy that's going to constantly push the ball down the field in an effort to create a one-on-one matchup or create a big play. He has not traditionally been a guy that's super patient offensively. It's not really who he is or how he's wired. He wants to put his foot on the gas and he wants to go. But I think this past weekend showed not just the maturity of the program, but also the maturity of Josh Heupel as a head coach. Because if you look at just how this game went, he didn't decide to go for the jugular. He didn't get impatient. He didn't constantly feel as though he needed to turn it into a track meet, because that's what's going to allow his offense to thrive. Instead, he said, hey, this is going to be a game, and he sensed this early and probably sensed it in the week as they prepared. This is going to be a game in which points are going to be at a premium. And guess what? Punting, with how our punter is punting it right now, is perfectly fine. Jackson Ross, their punter, did an amazing job of making sure that the field was flipped as many times as it was. He also, when they get in plus territory, there were a handful of examples in which it felt like, yeah, I think the old Josh Heupel would have gone for it. Instead, he said, no, we're good. Go out there and we'll just take the 3. That is a sign of maturity. And I've said this in the past when describing teams. There are a lot of different pathways. If the start of the game is Los Angeles and the end of the game in victory is New York, Tennessee used to have 3 or 4 different pathways from LA to New York. Now they can go a bunch of different ways. They can go up PCH and then across. They can go Route 65. They can go on 20 and go all the way through Arizona and all the way through Texas and all the way through Alabama. And then we get on I-95 and go north. Like, they can go 40 different ways now en route to a victory. Was, when he arrived, probably 3 or 4 different ways for them to get there. Now they can win with their defense. They can win by playing special teams and field position. They can turn you over. And guess what? They still can score. They can still manufacture big plays. And I think when you look at this game in particular, the defensive line's performance, and I know Oklahoma's not very good on offensive line. I get that. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say that it was a vintage performance against one of the best offensive lines in football. They play like that against, I don't know, LSU. The takeaway would be much stronger. I don't know how good Oklahoma's offensive line is. Frankly, I don't think they're very good, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that more than half of the plays in the game, both rushing attempts and passing attempts, Tennessee won those particular plays offensively or defensively, excuse me. Do you realize that Tennessee faced 45 dropbacks from Oklahoma? 45, which is a lot, I might add. And the Sooners were under pressure on 22 of 45. That is the highest pressure rate that Oklahoma has allowed in the last 5 years. Do you realize that Oklahoma had 34 rushing attempts? 34. 16 of those 34 were dropped for 0 or negative yards. Tennessee won that game with their front seven defensively. And while I think a lot of people will look at and respect a couple of the big plays that were manufactured offensively, that was about the defense. Dylan Sampson was amazing. That guy ran angry. He ran hard. He made opposing players feel it. Nico, I thought, was opportunistic. When the opportunity presented itself to hit a playoff play action down the field, he did. Had the slant to Brew McCoy. Had the post touchdown to Thornton. Like, there were some really nice moments from him. There were also moments in which you saw he's still a young player that's early in his development. So I'm really bullish on what I've seen from Tennessee so far. I think they are playing outstanding football. And I think part of what makes me so optimistic about them, though, is their willingness to play a bunch of different styles en route to a victory. It doesn't need to be a stat-padding offensive juggernaut performance, Damian. It can be a grinded out, thump you, tackle in the open field, force negative plays, going to get you off schedule, going to turn you over. That to me is a sign of progress, and that to me is why I think Tennessee is a legitimate national championship contender.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Now, that was my biggest takeaway from the game, too, is the fact that Tennessee is starting to approach this kind of, the dominant factor of, okay, our offense may not be clicking at 100% all the time, but we can hang our hat defensively of, okay, they're going to continue to make stops, and if we have to grind this thing out, we can. It doesn't have to be flashing. I agree with you 100%. What Dylan Sampson brings you as far as running the ball, he runs angry, and it's like a controlled anger. But I think what's going to help them in the long run is when that offense is clicking, the fact that, our defense isn't this bend but don't break anymore. Nah, we're dominant, and they played like that. And to your point, Oklahoma's got some real issues offensively, and I don't necessarily think that they were in the best position, Saturday to kind of expose Tennessee. But Tennessee defense, they kind of put them in that position of, okay, y'all are already struggling. We'll add to that because our defense is this good to stop y'all.
Yeah, and I think, lost in the, in the conversation, the praise of Tennessee, you should always start and praise the victorious team first. There's no denying that. Man, you got to feel for Oklahoma's defense. I mean, they left it all on the field. Yep. I mean, they really did. And I think what's amazing is that oftentimes a team is like a scale, and we've talked about this in the past. Like, a team is like a scale, and when you find the right balance, that's when special things happen. When your offense can win you games and when your defense can win you games. Like, when you find the right balance, that's really remarkable. For a long time, Tennessee was a team that leaned heavily on defense. Under Jeremy Pruitt, like, they wanted to beat you with defense. And then Heupel got there, it flipped on its head. They wanted to beat you with offense. And now Heupel's kind of figuring out the balance. Well, with Oklahoma, under Lincoln Riley, it was all about offense. and everything was put into the offense, and they were going to have to outscore you, and the defense suffered. And then Venables gets there, and he flips it on its head, and he's like, all right, well, we got to make our defense better. Well, guess what? Because you've made your defense the star of the show, look what suffered, the offense. It's very, very hard to have both offense and defense. It really is. It's extremely difficult to have both. Now, you can have both be terrible. There's plenty of teams that are terrible on offense and on defense. That's easy. But if you want to be a championship contender, it's hard to have both. It really is. It is a delicate balance to try to find that perfect blend of how you emphasize the offense and empower the offense and how you play to the defensive strengths and not hang them out to dry by overexposing them to snaps and overexposing them to, offenses that are going to be in high octane mode to try to match what your offense does. Well, Oklahoma now is all about defense, and their offense has suffered mightily. You take this defense for Oklahoma, put them with a Baker Mayfield-led offense, they win the national championship. The problem is the world doesn't work that way. I remember when at Alabama, when we were there, it's like, well, why don't we score more points? It's like, because we don't take the chances that would allow you to score more points, because we want to grind you out and physically demoralize you throughout the course of the game. And then you fast forward and it's like, 2022, and you have Bryce Young at quarterback, and he's throwing it all over the yard, and he's incredible, and he's one of the best players in the country, and the defense suffers. Why? Because we were all about the offense at that point. Like, it's amazing to me how the scales seemingly always, if one side's up, the other side seemingly is always down. Just to put in perspective Oklahoma's offensive futility on Saturday night. Here's their second quarter. Are you guys ready to listen to their second quarter? If there's kids still in the car, cover their ears, okay? Because this is just, nobody needs to hear this. Yes, exactly. If you're uncomfortable with this, please change the channel. Oklahoma had minus 20 yards on 5 possessions. The longest possession that they had was 3 plays. They had 2 3-and-outs, 2 lost fumbles on the first play of the drive, as well as a safety given up on the first play of another drive. They ran 12 plays in the quarter. They did not have a positive gain until their 10th offensive snap in the second quarter. Are you kidding me? I don't care how good the defense is. That is a difficult thing to wrap your head around. So tremendous amounts of credit to Tennessee. I think they're outstanding. But Oklahoma, my goodness, man, they got to figure some things out offensively. Their quarterback situation's problematic. Jackson Arnold, he just ain't it right now with the decision making. I just, simple as that. He just ain't it. And he makes a mistake. Here's the problem. He makes a mistake, and he tries to atone for the mistake by making a big play that's not smart. It's ill-advised. There's one thing you can't do. You cannot let your mistakes compound. And he's a young player, and hopefully things will get better in time, but he's a player whose mistakes compound, and that is bad ball. So I think they're going to give a good long look to Hawkins, the backup quarterback, because he did provide them with a little bit of a spark there in the second half of that football game. So it's really interesting to see that quarterback situation. Goodness gracious. You want drama? Auburn, Oklahoma is your game this weekend, guys. Let it rip. All right, when we come back, Barrett Sallee. We wanted to get an Auburn man's perspective with Cole out today, so we figured we'd go and get Barrett Sallee. He is an Auburn man, and we'll see just how close to the cliff's edge he is next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Chalk 94.5. Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5. Barrett Salee set to join us here, hopefully in just a moment. Before we talk to him, tell you about my friends at Bromberg's. They are going to offer you the luxury shopping experience that you'll only find at Bromberg's. There's a reason why they've been serving this community for 200 years, thereabouts, 188. But it's amazing when you walk in the store, the type of personal touch that you get when you walk in the store. You know all the wonderful people when you walk in, you see them, you're friends with the sales staff, and you're just going to have that one-of-a-kind experience only at Bromberg's. And they have an anti-glass giftware event coming up on September 23rd, starting today. Anti-glass giftware event. It'll run this whole week. Anti-glass is a California-based company that is known for its stunning handcrafted glassware. It's the perfect time to get a head start on holiday shopping and find something special for weddings. Annie Morehauser, the artist behind Anti-Glass, will be at the Mountain Brook store personally engraving pieces. So go check it out. Learn more at brombergs.com, and you'll be really happy when you go over there and check it out. All right, a lot of stuff that we want to get to here. SEC scoreboard, kind of bouncing things around for the moment, all right? Now, I thought it was pretty good performance from Arch Manning. I didn't think it was great by any stretch. It was fine. It's his first real action. It wasn't perfect. But then again, you know what? I think it's probably a good thing for Texas that he didn't go out there and throw for 8 touchdowns. Just being honest. Like, he had a couple of decisions in the game where it's like, all right, this guy's still a young player. He also had a couple other throws in the game where it's like, oh, heck yeah. All right, let's go. Guess what that's like? That's called being a freshman. Yeah, it's called being a young player. You're going to have some moments. You're going to have some not so good moments. But this at least puts to bed the notion that Arch Manning is better than Quinn Ewers. Like, I don't think there's anybody in Texas's locker room that was going to say that there was quarterback controversy. There wasn't. There was never quarterback controversy. I think the media wanted there to be, but Arch Manning was always the 2, going to continue to be the 2. But the fact that he looked good, not great, is probably beneficial. Because had he looked great, it would have perpetuated the narrative that he's actually the better option than Quinn Ewers. He's not at this point. But Texas has now scored 50-plus points in 4 straight home games dating back to last season. That's the longest streak that they've had in 16 years. They did 5 in a row back in 2007. So, scoring a lot of points in Texas. Hey, things will get tougher for them here pretty soon. They do, however, have a home date with Mississippi State this weekend. So let me just go ahead and tell you, I think the 50-point streak is going to continue. If you look at Mississippi State's defense, they got a whole host of issues. We'll go there next. Florida gets off the mat and takes care of Mississippi State. It was, let's just be real. It was kind of what it was. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was the greatest performance at sliced bread. I think the defense actually left something to be desired for sure. But my goodness, man, the offense is cooking. Still continuing to employ a bit of a 2-quarterback system. Lagway played some, not as much as Graham Mertz, but Mertz, 19 of 21, 201 and 3 touchdowns. Also added a rushing touchdown himself. 3 touchdowns in the first half were the most in a half since he became the starting quarterback at Florida. So he was off to a great start, and I thought it was a good bounce-back performance from the Florida Gators. There's not many that you feel great about going and trying to have to get a win against on the road in the SEC. This is one you had to have. You did. Kentucky made quick work of Ohio. South Carolina made quick work behind Robbie Ashford, who led the Gamecocks not just in passing but rushing as well. They win 50-7 over Akron. A&M with a bit of a sleepwalk against Bowling Green. They end up getting a win there 26-20. We talked a little earlier about Missouri. We'll talk a little more about that one later. And Ole Miss, on the heels of what was been just an absolute 4-game gauntlet for Ole Miss between Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. They get it done in convincing fashion, 52-6. All right, we welcome him on now. He is Barrett Salee. Does a great job. And we needed an Auburn voice today, Barrett. I know that you cover nationally, but we needed an Auburn voice today to help us understand what is going on with the Auburn Tigers and where the mind is of the Auburn Tiger fans. So since Cole is out, will you be that guy for us?
No, I can provide that, I think. And congratulations for Ole Miss for running through that gauntlet. I mean, that's just
I don't know how they did it. It's amazing.
I don't either. Go ahead and give him the title. Go ahead and give him the trophy.
It's not the non-con that you're looking for. That's for sure. But hey, 4-0 is 4-0. They did, however, drop from 5-6. So maybe Lane Kiffin getting some rat poison. From the AP poll. Help us understand, buddy, what's going on with the Auburn Tigers, and just give me, like, from your fans' perspective. Like, you went to Auburn, you support Auburn, you're a fan of Auburn, and yet they've let you down already this year. So what is kind of the thought process from your perspective?
Yeah, well, first things first, I would love for them to do better because I've got Auburn people in this house, and I don't like when they're miserable. I mean, it's difficult around here. But, you know, I think it is as simple as Hugh married himself to Peyton Thorne last offseason and didn't necessarily get as aggressive in the transfer portal. You know, we all saw Bo Wallace's tweets, but I mean, look, Bo Wallace was successful. Chad Kelly was successful. Malik Willis was successful. I think Hugh maybe thought that he could do it again with a guy in Peyton Thorne who physically just doesn't have the best skills in the world, but is, you know, he's been effective. You know, I think everyone knows that he was all right at Michigan State. And so because of that, I think he maybe had blinders on. And as a result, he's in a situation now where all of the things that he did in the offseason to help Peyton Thorne, which was the wide receivers, which I think all of us can look at and say, those dudes are better. They actually are getting open. You know, in the offensive line, which I think we can all look at and say, okay, it's a little better. You know, those two things specifically were supposed to help, and they didn't. And I think it is that simple. It just that the plan did not work, and it's not supposed to be this way with a guy in Hugh Freeze who has a track record of doing the exact opposite, of getting more out of his players, even though from a talent perspective, they're not where they are compared to, you know, other teams. And like, you know, it kind of goes back to, you know, when Hugh was at Ole Miss and beat Alabama and, you know, had Kimdichie and all those guys, and everyone was like, well, he's cheating, he's getting all these players. And it's like, compare those guys to Alabama's and LSU's. Okay, yeah, they've got some good players. Across the board, they're not what those teams are, and he's still successful. And it's not happening right now, and I think that's what's the most frustrating part.
Yeah, I think what is also frustrating, I just look at the receivers, for example. Like, why are they getting off scot-free? Like, I know they're young. I get that. And that's fine. I'm not going to necessarily say that I expected them to be the best receiving core in the country. But I can tell you this, there aren't a whole lot of receiving cores that have as many drops as what I've seen from Auburn. I mean, Auburn right now, a 9.1% drop percentage. That's among the worst in the country. You have 2 drops from Cam Coleman. He's been targeted 12 times this year. He's got 2 drops. You got 2 drops from Perry Thompson. He's been targeted 6 times. You have 2 drops from Rivaldo Fairweather. He's been targeted 18 times. You got 2 drops from Keandre Lambert-Smith, the veteran in the group. He is at 22 targets. Like,
yeah,
there's been a lot of drops too. And you also referenced the offensive line. I think the offensive line's worse than a year ago, and I'm not sure it's close. So while it's easy to make the quarterback the scapegoat, how concerning is it that the other positions around the quarterback have maybe not been as advertised.
Well, and that goes back to the point because the plan is not working. And I'll say this, the drops are frustrating, but they're getting open. It's one of those things where, you fixed one part of it if you're Hugh. The guys are getting open, but then they're not doing their job either. So I think it goes back to what I said before. Like, the plan is not working. Like, none of it is working. And then on top of that, you have your running backs fumbling in the end zone, and it's injuries with Cam getting injured. So you thought you could get him involved, and now he missed a game and maybe some change. So it kind of goes back. It's just the plan all around is not working, even though you want the wide receivers. They are getting open, which is different than last year. But then they're not catching the ball when it comes their direction. It's just a multi-layer frustration with the players, with the plan, with the coaching staff. It's just none of it's working, and it goes back to what Hugh has done. It seems like the fans, I think even national media, just people in general, were sold a bill of goods that just is fake. It's built on false promises.
Moving over to Tennessee as we visit with Barrett Sallee, writes for Outkick. You can also follow Barrett Sallee on Twitter at Barrett Sallee, Sallee. Looking at Tennessee and the performance that they had on the road, I am of the belief that they went from good to great. The next step is going from great to elite. They're not quite there yet with me. I think I still have to learn more about how good Oklahoma is, frankly. But, I mean, if you're grading Tennessee through the first 4 performances, it'd be hard to give them anything less than an A-, which I think is rock solid. Yeah. So how would you assess where Tennessee's at right now?
Yeah, I would agree. And look, I think when you're talking about some of these teams, you can sit here and play, well, they ain't played nobody. But in reality, you can sit here 12 games from now and say the same thing with some of these teams. It's just kind of how football fans and short for fanatic, that works. But the biggest thing to me is their defensive line. And I sat with Josh Heupel. I had him for about 10 minutes solo in Dallas. And he looked at me square in the eye and he goes, I am one defensive lineman away from being not just 2 deep, but potentially 3 deep. And kind of looked at him, I'm like, okay, like I know your front seven's good, but that's a little aggressive. It turns out it's not. It turns out he found more than one. So I think that's the most impressive part. And yeah, we need to find out how good Oklahoma is. And I think it's there's no secret that Jackson Arnold is basically the Oklahoma version of Peyton Thorne, just with less experience. And so but with that said, like, what do you want them to do to prove that Tennessee to prove that they're deserving of a top 10, perhaps even a top 5 performance based on just solely this year, right? The offense is unbelievable. And that is even when Nico has just sort of okay games, because NC State, he was just sort of okay. Against Oklahoma is just sort of okay. They ran the football. They're a run-first team, and they play defense at an elite level. So, as far as complete teams go, I mean, Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama maybe now, but, the sample size is small, and one of those sample sizes, a USF team that, that wasn't exactly the Christmas game for Alabama, but and they're a complete football team. And, going on the road to Norman, I don't care how, what Oklahoma, like, they're not going to fall off the table. This is not going to be a 3-9 disaster for Brent Venables. They're still a competitive football team. They're still, 7-5, 8-4, pretty decent. So, I mean, to do what Tennessee's done, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And like I said, I can't see many more teams that are at that same level in terms of proving every single aspect. Offense, defense, special teams, every unit. The one weakness we thought existed was the secondary. It's fine. It's better than fine. Now, obviously, a great front seven helps, but, I mean, where's the weakness? The only criticism is, well, they ain't played nobody. They played better teams than a lot of other teams out there, and they seem to be doing just fine.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I've seen teams play worse. Look at what we got with Ole Miss right now. Ole Miss, we'll get Kentucky this week, so we'll get a good feel for it. Barrett, appreciate the time, man. Look forward to seeing you soon, and best of luck to your Braves down the stretch. Big series coming up this week.
I'll be there all 3 days. It's stressful, man. It is stressful.
It's hard to be a Braves fan right now. That's for sure. It's extremely
and
stressful. That's the best way to describe it.
We were forced to root for the Phillies this weekend, and they screwed it up.
Times are tough for sure. Times are extremely tough. But with the Braves and what they have coming up this week against the Mets, like, it doesn't get much more interesting. I don't know if the schedule makers there in the MLB could have asked for anything more. They will take on the Mets in a 3-game stand tomorrow at, what time is first pitch? Who cares? 6:20 local time.
I'm just glad there's a beer stand right behind my season tickets. That's very helpful.
There you go. Well, good luck, buddy. Hopefully you can take care of Kansas City. We'll see what happens there. But appreciate the time, Barrett Salee. You can check him out at Barrett Salee on social media, and you can also check out his work at Outkick. When we come back, another top 3 from Damian. I'm going to make him do one more next on Mac and Cube. Welcome back, McElroy, Cubelic. Good morning, Jocks 94.5. Damian, I know you have another top 3 for me. Before we do, tell us about Beham Realty.
I'll tell you about my buddy Ben Heading at BHAM Realty. If you think about selling your home and when it comes to selling, you only want excellence, you need to give my buddy Ben a call, 205-568-2705, or go to bhamrealtyco.com. If you're struggling to get your house sold because the markets are changing every single day, you need an expert that focuses on adapting at half the time to make sure you and your squad come out on top. That's my buddy Ben Heading of the BHAM Realty Group. Visit their website at bhamrealtyco.com or just give them a call at 205-568-2705. Well, as you all know, on September 23rd, we celebrate National Great American Pot Pie Day.
Oh, Great American Pot Pie?
Yes, sir.
Not just pot pie.
Nah, the Great American Pot Pie.
What is is that a specific type?
Your guess is good.
It feels redundant.
It does.
It does.
Indeed. But it's also National Checkers Day. So quickly, what are your top 3 board games?
Oh, board games. That's a good one. Life, number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, pretty big fan of. I like checkers, but I like Connect 4.
Attaboy.
That would be 2 if that counts, and then 3, probably go with backgammon.
Backgammon? I'm not too familiar with it.
Not surprised. It's a thinking game.
Nah. Number 3 for me, Scrabble. Number 2 for me, Connect 4. Number 1, Monopoly, dog.
Scrabble. Wow. Number was precious little time, but number 1 for me because Monopoly would be there. I don't know if it counts because Jenga, there's a board, but not really. Number 1, Settlers of Catan. Love the game.
I like that.
Wait, what? Welcome back, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5. 9 a.m. here, Birmingham, Alabama. Been a good show so far, talking about Tennessee's brilliance this weekend, talking a little bit about what's going on the plains and how things can get situated. We'll give you a solution there. I really don't think it's as bad as it might feel. I really do. It's just there's going to be some egg on some people's face, which is not necessarily very fun, but it is what it is, man. You got to win games, and time is now to get things going in the right direction. If you want things going in the right direction with your HVAC, call our friends at Polar Bear Services. Look, we know the hot weather's been here. It's been hot, even though we're deep into the fall now. It feels that hot weather's not going away just yet. Make sure your system is not overworking itself. Have it checked out by the experts at Polar Bear Services. They're an independent train dealer, and you don't want that thing giving you problems when you've got weather approaching triple digits. So make sure you do the system tune-up, the duct clean, repair, new installations, those reliable train systems. They can work on all types of home services, including plumbing. They were at my house the other day for a plumbing situation, electrical work, and whole home generator systems. Serving all over the state. Remember, if you have a problem with your electrical, plumbing, heat, or air, just pick up the phone and call the Bear. It's 205-497-BEAR. That's 497-BEAR. We welcome him on now. He's Tyler Watts, and we appreciate him joining us here 9 o'clock at the top of the 9 o'clock hour. Tyler, look, bye week in the books. Huge one coming up this weekend. But when you look at what you would do, if you were Kalen DeBoer and you were trying to put forth a bye week plan, what would have been the highest priorities for you this past weekend?
Ooh, that's a good question. We don't often see these bye weeks this early in the season, so how you're navigating this sucker is a little bit challenging. Normally you're using it obviously just to heal guys up, and that's what Georgia's doing right now. But you got to stay sharp, and I think there's still a lot of things that Alabama needs to be working on, and I think that you would have approached it of going hard a couple of days, although you do have Caden Proctor and a couple other guys on the defensive side that are nursing some injuries. You still got to stay sharp because this is going to be a physical game if the last couple of times that these two teams have squared off is any indication.
Well, looking at the injury situation, I hate that that's part of the conversation, but it kind of is right now. You have Quay Rousseau, who's got an ankle injury. We haven't heard a whole lot about his availability. Just the fact that, hey, all tests looked pretty good. There's a possibility, and the bye week was critical for his availability. You also had Malachi Moore, who was a little banged up there after the Wisconsin game. Richard Young, we've Cole Adams is hopefully moving in the right direction. On the other side, I mean, Michael Williams was out for Georgia last time out. Warren Brinson, their defensive tackle, was out last week. So, I mean, this could be like whoever's healthiest wins the game. So how imperative is it for those guys to get back this week?
Well, you need all hands on deck, and that's anytime you're playing a good competition each and every week. But these are two programs, obviously. I mean, they got all the depth in the world, right, Greg? I mean, everybody goes and plays for these. There's no problem just plugging in the next guy. But this is honestly where I think, and you're hopeful that the rotation that Alabama especially has been utilizing over the first 3 weeks on the defensive side of getting a lot of guys meaningful playing time, not just in third and fourth quarter, but throughout the course of the game. You're hoping that you have game time reps that can kind of overcome that experience lack that a lot of teams have by just plugging in the next guy. But look, it's going to be physical. There's no doubt about that. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Cole's always good at predicting these suckers because he knows that if you can prevent Georgia from running the football or limit their ability to run the football, you really limit their success on the offensive side.
The one thing I'll say about Georgia this year that's a little different, I think they're really explosive at running back. With all due respect to the guys they've had the last 2 or 3 years, whether the Kendall Milton and Dejon Edwards, like they were good, they were solid. I mean, they were solid players, but they didn't have that home run hitting ability. That I think is going to be really interesting and how you bottle those guys up, because just an inch of space with those backs in particular, they can take it the distance. So how much would that change how you defended this offense, knowing that they do have that home run potential at running back while also having, I think, the most accurate quarterback in the sport?
Well, one of the things is you've kind of been relying heavily on that box for the defensive side up front, especially by rotating defensive linemen in there, keeping them fresh. Tim Keenan continues to be kind of that sword up front for opposing offensive lines by just plugging up the gaps. But then the flow of the linebackers as well. Jahai Campbell has been playing outstanding. He's going to have to be a guy that is able to stay free. But, one thing that's different, that's kind of hard to predict how this one's going to be, is the difference in philosophies of the defensive sides from under Coach Saban to now under Kane Womack, how they try to penetrate a whole lot more than they used to. They try to suffocate you there at the line of scrimmage without necessarily having to commit more people. But there's no doubt that, and I know Cole's been talking about this, it's a lot, and you have too, but there's a lot more to this defense that we have not seen in the first 3 weeks that you definitely anticipate the entire kitchen sink, so to be thrown at Georgia, giving different looks, trying to confuse, and you don't have to confuse Beck. I mean, that's not necessarily the goal. It's how do you confuse that offensive line by giving them different looks?
Yeah, I think that's big. I mean, you look at how Kentucky handled the offensive line, and look, they're going to be likely without Tate Ratledge. He's not officially ruled out, but I mean, we all saw the right guard for Georgia with ankle and knee wrapped up on crutches the last time they were on the field. So I can't imagine he's going to be able to go. And the offensive line's been a little bit more human than they've been in the past. As far as Georgia's defense is concerned, with where this offense has gone in utilizing quarterback run, where it's like, man, thank goodness. You know what I mean? Like, thank goodness that's a big part of the offense's identity now. And it's not necessarily they're just running, quarterback dive or quarterback zone or quarterback power. Like, they're utilizing QB sweep, where it's really about the speed and the explosiveness of Jalen Milroe. I mean, that's who he is. That's his best attribute, or his legs. So how different of an offensive attack is this attack than the one that Georgia's seen in the past under Nick Saban?
I don't know how much it's different, though, because Jalen Milroe was integral in the success that they had in the SEC championship game last year with the zone read concepts, over pursuit by the defense, being overly aggressive. And, you try to take the strength of a defense and use it against them. And it's their speed and their aggression that sometimes can come back and bite them. They over pursue things. They don't account for the quarterback 100% of the time. And even when they do, then that potentially presents some one-on-one opportunities in the secondary because you're having to commit an extra guy down into the box. I think that we're going to see some different looks off of some of these concepts this week. This is just my gut of, hey, if you've got it and the defense knows that you're good at something, surely you have a wrinkle or two off of it. But this has kind of been one of the bigger challenges for both Coach Saban while he was coaching in Alabama, and Kirby Smart while he's been in Tuscaloosa as well as Georgia, is a mobile quarterback who can do things through the air, but also really hurt you with his feet on the ground.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. What do you think about the receivers? I do think the big question mark for Georgia is the secondary. I know that it's been okay this year. I mean, statistically speaking, things look pretty good. I do think there's been a handful of missed opportunities by opposing teams on some downfield throws that they just haven't hit. But I think the secondary is gettable, which is different from what we've seen from Georgia in the past. So how confident are you that this wide receiver core can take advantage of an area of Georgia's defense that might be a vulnerability?
I feel a lot better after the game at Wisconsin. And that's not to say that Wisconsin was a top 5 team by any means, but the emergence, obviously, of Ryan Williams and his explosiveness, as well as Jeremy Bernard and what he's kind of been able to do when he gets some one-on-one opportunities, I think he's really developing and is complementary to Ryan Williams, because you put too much focus on number 2, and then Bernard's going to he's going to wear you out on the other side. And there's still a couple other guys that we still have not seen a whole lot of. I don't know that we ever will. But that 1-2 punch has really got to be given some fits, especially if you're able to establish some things up front and really force some of those secondary guys to start peeking an eye down into the box if they're having to come up into run support.
Is it an advantage I'm always curious about this. Like, you have a new coach, new identity, new staff. Not crazy challenged in the first 3 weeks. You probably have a bunch of tricks up your sleeve. Does that give you an advantage against a team that you know every single thing that they're going to do because they've been doing it for the last 9 years at Georgia?
Yeah, but don't you think that they've been having some wrinkles over the last couple of times these two teams have lined up? I mean, they do know each other. They know how to stop each other, but you still have to go out there and perform and execute. And that's ultimately what these games come down. We sometimes overthink these things of thinking, well, you got to do this and you can do that. But the reality is you have to stay true to who you are. And what you do well, you have to lean on. You have to be able just to impose your will. I mean, everybody knew that y'all were going to run the ball 40 times when you won a national championship, but nobody can stop it. So you just imposed your will. You did what you were going to do. But then you have some wrinkles when the opportunities present themselves that you can take advantage of what a defense is adjusting to.
Early on, as we visit with Tyler Watts here, he will be on the call on Saturday. Look forward to hearing him alongside Chris Stewart. Should be awesome. Just a terrific environment and a terrific game. Outside of the obvious, Jalen Milroe, Deontay Lawson, what have you. Who would you say is the most important player this weekend in trying to create an advantage for the Tide?
I'll tell you what, I think the defensive line play has kind of been a difference maker for Alabama over the last several times that we've lined up versus Georgia. So I would say somebody like a Jamarian Latham or LT Overton, James Smith. Those are guys that have really stepped into a role of applying a ton of pressure and one-on-one opportunities on the edge, as well as doing a relatively nice job in the run game as well. So I think it always starts up front. If you can apply pressure and disrupt in the backfield, that sure does make your job easier on the back end. So if they can have success up front and cause some havoc, moving Carson Beck off of his spot, forcing him to throw early, he becomes human as well.
Yeah, and then finally, Tyler, as you kind of look forward to this one, how important is the home field? I mean, I've always felt like it's massive in a game like this where the crowd's going to be super into it and it's going to be super hostile. And now with the coach-to-player communications, that becomes even more challenging. So looking at kind of how everything should sort out there in Bryant-Denny, I mean, how big of an advantage is that?
It's as big of an advantage as you make it from the standpoint of you need to come out and play well early on. I go back to Texas last year with an electric atmosphere to start the game off. Caleb Downs comes up, makes a couple of sticks. The place is erupting, going nuts. But then next thing you know, your offense stutters. You throw an interception. You get down 10, and it wasn't hostile at all for a quarter and a half. And then in the third quarter, Alabama started making some plays, tied the game up, actually went ahead in that ball game, and they were a part of the game as well. So it always plays a factor if the team is performing and they're in the game. Now, if you make mistakes, it's not an issue at all, and that's obviously what Georgia is wanting to do. But hopefully Alabama will play sound, and the crowd can definitely have an influence on the outcome of this game.
Is this the toughest game on the schedule in your eyes?
It still remains to be seen. I mean, as we know, Tennessee looked pretty doggone good the other night, but I'm with you. It's still early, and you don't always know what the opponent of what you're looking at, how truly round they are. Oklahoma, obviously, really good defense, but struggle. But even Tennessee in the second half, I mean, they didn't really keep the foot on the pedal and extend that lead that they took into halftime. They allowed Oklahoma to come back and make it close to a one-possession game. I think everybody's beatable, but to this point, this is definitely the one simply from the standpoint of what both of these teams have accomplished over the last several years.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, man. Can't wait to see it. I know you'll do a great job on the call.
Hey,
Go ahead, buddy.
Are you going to be shocked if Alabama gets this win today? Are you going to be shocked if Georgia ends the year with 3 losses?
I've thought from the beginning that a 2-loss Georgia was not at all out of the realm of possibility. To anticipate them losing 3 on the road, that to me feels a little tougher to anticipate them maybe losing to Tennessee at home. That one maybe become a little bit more real, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't shock me, but I would still, if you told me, all right, put Georgia's win total up there at 9.5, I would still take the over. But then again, I mean, this is a whole new world now that we're living in, and
this is exactly
people have to be real comfortable with 10 and 2s. You know what I mean? And 9 and 3s even.
No, you're right. And this, with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, this is what we were hoping for. This is a tough league. This is a tough league, and you can be a really good team and still walk away with a couple of losses.
Yeah, you can be excellent. And, you catch someone on the wrong day. I mean, look at Missouri. I think Missouri's a good team, and they almost lost to Vandy at home. And it's not one that a lot of people would have circled in the preseason and said, hey, yeah, this one's going to overtime. So it's tough, man. It's very, very tough. So I think the winner of this game is in great shape. I think the loser in this game is still in great shape, assuming it doesn't get sideways, that's for sure. Tyler, appreciate the time, man. Can't wait to listen to you guys on this weekend's call, and have a great week, brother.
Hey, thank you.
All right, Tyler Watts joining us here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. All right, when we come back, we're going to kind of bounce around, get a little bit bigger picture. We are also always welcome your phone calls. I know that there's been a strong reaction today, 800-239-9569. You also can call or text the show, 205-834-9450. Appreciate those of you listening up in Huntsville, and we also appreciate those of you listening in Montgomery, and those of you listening all over the country and all over the world on Jocks FM and on the Jocks app. When we come back, do a little bigger picture, get outside the footprint for a moment, tell you some big outcomes in other places next on Mac and Cube in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Welcome back to McElroy Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5, 9:20 here in Birmingham, Alabama. Just a few minutes left here to kind of wrap around and bounce around the entire country of college football. We appreciate those of you that have joined the show. 800-239-9569. You also can call or text the show as always at 205-834-9450. We're going to kind of bounce around nationally here just for a moment before we get back to some of your phone calls and some of your reaction. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you about the National Dealer of the Year. That would be Bill Smith Buick GMC. It's a short drive up to Coleman. We're very lucky to have them in our backyard. It's amazing to see just what kind of deals they can offer you. Very few of their vehicles are not on sale significantly. So I highly recommend actually driving up to Coleman and seeing for yourself exactly what the deals look like at Bill Smith Buick GMC. It's really amazing. You can get a GMC Sierra, 2,500 Denali, 90,095. They'll take 7,000 off the sticker price. You get it for just over 83,000 plus 5.9% for 84 months. Deals like that to keep it coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. So take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com. Bill Smith Buick GMC. We are professional grade. Before we get to the national games, let's go to Beham Dog. He's been patient. Beham Dog, what's going on, my friend?
I've been extremely patient. No, seriously, guys. Quick question for you, Greg. Last week you said App State getting beat by South Alabama after you talked about the Clemson game. You said it was more about how bad App State was than how good Clemson was. Now, after watching Clemson play NC State, what's your perception on them? And look, I'm looking for any loophole I possibly can to make me feel good about the upcoming game this week because I don't feel good about it. And one last thing, and I'll hang up and listen. If it's torrential downpours, and y'all may discuss this later in the week, what team would that benefit the most? And I'll hang up and listen. Have a good day, guys.
I'm assuming he's talking Georgia, Bama. Are we anticipating rain this weekend in the forecast?
I know, like towards the end of this week, the work week,
it's possible. There's a tropical something going on it's going to make its way to the south. We just don't know where at the moment. So maybe.
Gotcha. It's looking like 76 degrees right now, according to AccuWeather at kickoff. So fingers crossed the weather's not a factor. But hey, if it is, I don't know if it really benefits one team or the other. They're just built very similarly. I guess I would say lean slightly towards Alabama. I think with slightly better offensive line play at the moment and a better run game at the moment, with the element of quarterback run being a factor as well. So, I mean, in the event in which rain comes, I would say that's slight advantage Bama for sure. But, I don't think it's a massive advantage, to be honest with you. To me, I've always said that wind is what neutralizes advantages more so than rain. Like wet ball, I mean, yeah, do I want it to be wet? No. Like, is a slick ball more difficult to throw? Sure. But it shouldn't have as much of an impact as wind. Wind can really, really make life tough on you. So I don't know what the wind looks like. We'll evaluate that. It's still 5 days out. I mean, shoot. The weather guys will tell us that it's perfectly sunny, perfect day to day, and it'll be storming by 11:15. So I'm going to hold off right now on the weather until we get a little bit further. But I think a lot of it sometimes too, like with Clemson, that's one of my takeaways for the weekend. I called that game on Saturday. It was obviously a lot to a little.
Oh, yeah.
But I think Clemson's very, very good. I think they're starting to figure themselves out. I think offensively they've had their challenges. I still think they're extremely human defensively. I don't think they're special on that side of the ball like they once were. But I do think that they are pretty good offensively. And you look at their schedule too. I mean, Clemson is going to be there at the end. Whether you like it or not, they're probably going to be there. Barring an unforeseen outcome, they have at Florida State. That's a hurdle. Stanford comes to them this weekend. They're a healthy favorite. They're at Wake Forest. They're a healthy favorite there. Virginia's at their place, healthy favorite. Louisville is ranked 15th right now. They'll be a healthy favorite at home against Louisville. They're on the road at Virginia Tech. Be careful there. At Pitt, be careful there. But you really look at them, man, they're going to be favored in probably every game, and it might be north of a touchdown in almost every game too. So it's going to require a decent upset to beat Clemson based on how they're performing now over the last 2 weeks offensively. So worth watching there. I think Clemson's very much in the mix for a playoff spot as they continue to move forward. And it wouldn't shock me if they're 11-1 and their one loss is to Georgia. They might even be in a position to win, to get an at-large spot out of the ACC, which no one would have said that after week 1. Other outcomes of this week that I found pretty fascinating. Of course, all eyes were on Michigan and USC. To see a team win a game in 2024 with 32 yards passing warms my heart. I mean, it really does. Like, it's just, we are so accustomed in our society to associate great offense with a lot of points and a thriving passing attack. And no one's going to sit here and describe Michigan's team as a great offensive juggernaut. But they have an identity, and they stick to that identity, and come hell or high water, they're going to be who they are. And I respect the heck out of that. To be outgained 180-6 in the third quarter, to not get in a first down on the first 5 drives of the second half, but still to be in the game in a one-possession game when you hadn't done anything in 28 minutes offensively because you got a pick 6 from your best defensive player is insane. I mean, it really is truly insane. And then in a gotta-have-it situation, you're backed up, you pop one for 63 yards, and next thing you know, you're knocking on the doorstep. A few plays later, it's 4th and 1. You give it to your 230-pound running back, and he powers his way across the goal line. It's just, you got to admire them. Now, I don't think they're going anywhere this year. I think their ceiling is pretty limited. When you're that one-dimensional, you're pretty limited. But I don't think Minnesota's going to get them. I don't think Washington's going to get them. Illinois will be an interesting game. That game's on the road. Oregon right now is not like they're war daddies along the front, and I don't think they have a chance against Ohio State. But that was a really impressive and gutsy performance from a very proud program. So I don't know if y'all have a takeaway from that one, but you kind of come away respecting Michigan finding a way to win the way they did, playing as poorly as they did in some aspects of the game.
Yeah, and one takeaway I got from USC is actually, defensively they have gotten better in certain areas. I think tackling is probably, still kind of an issue, but it's not as bad as it was last season or since Lincoln Riley's been there. But to your point with Michigan, to not even ask Alex Orji to just don't blow it. Just big dog, we will ground and pound until we're blue in the face, and we'll see where it goes from there. And like you said, in just this new age of football, to only win with 32 yards passing, and I mean, if that's going to be a recipe moving forward, a lot of it's going to be the old school Big Ten football that we kind of grew up on. Of you got offensive linemen, you got a bevy full of running backs back there. This is just how it's going to be. And I think for Michigan, not to ask your offense, it's like Iowa for the past couple seasons. We will throw if absolutely necessary, but other than that, we'll just chew this thing on up and see where it goes from here.
Well, just to put things in perspective with their ineptitudes passing the football, this is the fewest passing yards in a game for Michigan since Halloween of 1987.
Oh, yeah.
In that game, their quarterback was named Michael Taylor. He was 1 for 5 for 3 yards. And they had 374 rushing yards.
There you go.
In this game, they averaged 4.6 yards per completion. That was the lowest yards per completion in any game in the history of Michigan football. The previous low was in 1951 when they had 4.8 yards per completion. So to put that in perspective, to think that this was historically one-dimensional performance and to still beat a team that is vastly improved is pretty remarkable. And I also want to give some credit to SC. Like, I'm not one for moral victories. I'm not. But you take last year's version of SC and you say, hey, we're going to time warp you into a game in Ann Arbor on September 21st of 24, they get beat by 3+ touchdowns.
With ease.
Maybe more.
with ease.
Seriously, they get absolutely worked. So you got to give a ton of credit to what USC has now become defensively. They're still not going to be an elite group. That's not who they are. But they weathered the storm pretty dang well. And while in the first half, they were on their heels, very much on their heels, and they got gashed a couple times. Like, there were a couple big runs given up for sure. In the fourth quarter, you could tell they were clearly out of gas. 96 yards given up in the fourth quarter. 84 of those came on the final drive, where they just pounded them into submission there at the very end. But their quarterback showed toughness. I thought their offensive line did not play great, but that's a good defensive line that you're going against, so that's to be expected. And of all the things to be critical of in the game for SC, I think the thing that you might be most critical about was Lincoln Riley's play calling. And if I'm worried about Lincoln Riley's play calling, they're in good shape, because I can tell you what I'm not worried about is him dialing it up. Like, they're going to be all right. And SC, hey, I don't know if they're a playoff team or anything like that. Like, we don't need to go that far. But you have to be proud of just how far they've come since last year, when toughness and physicality was a legitimate question mark. Now, they have Wisconsin at home this weekend before they go to Minnesota on October 5th. And then on October 12th, they'll welcome Penn State to Los Angeles. So a lot still to look forward to from SC. And I think they're going to be a player. I mean, if they got Penn State, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Another takeaway in the game from the weekend, Utah. Utah is the most infuriating team in the world as it relates to finding out whether or not their players are playing. That is beyond irritating, because everyone's sitting there operating under the assumption that Cam Rising's going, and then he's not, and then he is, and then all of a sudden, nope, we'll put Wilson in. He's just going to go out there and be the guy today. Like, what the heck? Like, I don't care. It's not even like for gambling purposes. Like, I just want to know, like, so I can properly break down the game for our audience. Like, that's all I care about. I just want to make sure it's accurate. But man, everything coming out of Salt Lake is just misled. It's just nonstop. But the thing that's amazing about Utah is that it is never, ever going to be a program that utilizes excuses. Like, you want a program that makes excuses and, oh, well, we didn't have this, and, oh, well, our guys didn't do that, and, oh, we'd struggle with this, and, oh, it's, you know, we got to travel, and, oh, I don't like having to play at 11 o'clock. And, like, there's a lot of programs that make excuses, man. There really are. Like, oh, well, you know, we didn't have this, and that team does this. And I'll tell you what, Utah isn't an excuse-making operation. They won 10 games last year completely in spite of their offense. Or, 8 games last year completely in spite of their offense. And then this year, you go on the road into arguably the second or third best team in the Big 12. Hostile environment, new league, no starting quarterback, and it doesn't matter. Hey, Micah Bernard, running back, come on now. You're going to carry it 25 times. You're going to go for nearly 200. I mean, it's like amazing. And then defensively, do you realize that they forced 6 3-and-outs? They had Oklahoma State fans booing their own offense. All right. Yeah. Okay. So Oklahoma State found a couple things and then got it going a little bit halfway through the fourth quarter, end up scoring, end up making it a little more competitive. But that was all she wrote. I mean, it doesn't matter what the adversity is for Utah. They just play. And like everybody should admire that program for what it is. I'm not saying you got to be a Utah fan or anything, but you want to talk about a team that anywhere, anytime, any circumstances, we don't care. We're just excited to play, and you better play well if you want to beat us. It's pretty cool, Damian, especially I know from a guy that's played. Like, you got to admire that.
Yeah, like they don't make any excuses, big dog. It doesn't matter if Cam Rising's there or not. We just need 11 on defense. We need 11 on offense. We need 11 on special teams. Let's go play ball. And Kyle Whittingham has gotten them like that. Their attitude is, it doesn't matter what 11 we have out there. We gonna play our type of ball. And that's exactly what Oklahoma State got a nice helping of on Saturday.
It never fails, man. That's rinse and repeat. Utah is about as predictable as it gets. We will continue on with your phone calls, 800-239-9569. Always open to getting your feedback here on a Monday edition of Mac and Cube. Let's go to Tommy. Tommy wants to talk some Auburn. What's going on, Tommy?
Hey, guys. How you doing this morning?
How are you, buddy?
You guys were just talking about Utah doesn't make excuses. It seems like every time Auburn loses, Hugh Freeze makes an excuse, but he's never the one that caused the problem. These quarterbacks are his guys. All three of them, White, Thorne, and Brown. He signed all three of them. So he knocked Brown and Thorne, but he's not knocking his quarterback coach. So you guys tell me, where does Auburn go at QB? I wish they would move Sam Jackson back to quarterback. He could do any worse than what they're doing running this offense. So what do you think Auburn's main problem is?
Well, appreciate the phone call, Tommy. I think that Peyton Thorne gives you the best chance to win. Like, I remember last year having this conversation about Alabama in, week 4 or whatever. It was after the South Florida game. And we all had a, sit down kumbaya and talked about it and pretended like we were the staff, the offensive staff. And you kind of acknowledged, you said, all right, well, Jalen Milroe at that point was a flawed player. This was week 3 of last year. He still gave you the best chance, especially with the challenges that your offensive line has, especially with the issues that you have blocking at that time. Remember, this was week 3 after South Florida when they just didn't play well whatsoever. They end up going with Jalen. Jalen plays fine throughout October, and then we saw his best self in November. I still think Peyton Thorne gives you the best chance. He's a veteran. He's played. I think he's athletic enough to get you out of a jam. And I don't think that at this point he's going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. No, like that's not going to happen. But I do think that he can certainly win you enough games to, or at least make you competitive enough to get some games down the stretch that maybe you wouldn't anticipate getting. I don't think Hank Brown's ready. I don't think he's mobile enough behind an offensive line that is really leaky. If the offensive line was great, perfect. Put him back there. But they're not. They give up a lot of pressure. Sam Jackson, I've seen him play when he was at Cal. I don't think he's an adequate enough thrower at this point. I don't think the offensive line is good enough in run blocking to go and lean almost exclusively on trying to ground and pound. I think this needs to be a balanced attack, and I think Peyton Thorne's the best thrower/runner of the bunch. So while it might hurt, it's the same answer that I had last week about the quarterback spot. It should be Peyton Thorne, and the fact that it wasn't is because of a panic move and succumbing to the pressure and expectation of fans and the animosity and vitriol being spewed by fans. But if you start making decisions based on what people outside your program think, I think that's a problem. I do. So I hope that wasn't a factor. I think it was. I think the boosters were a factor as well. I think people texting and saying, well, this is what so-and-so said at quarterback club. I think that was a factor. And frankly, I think it was a mistake. So I'd put Peyton Thorne back in there. I'd roll with him. You got to go with what you got, and I think he gives you the best chance, at least at the moment. All right, when we come back, tell you about a couple other takeaways from the weekend that we were able to come across, including something just remarkably puzzling about the group of 5. I'll explain next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back to McElroy Cubelic in the Morning Jux, 94.5, 9:43 here in Birmingham. Hope everybody, their Monday is off to a terrific start. I was telling Damian and Saber in the break, I'm struggling a bit, man. I'm tired, dude. I mean, staying up till 1. Look, it was a great experience taking my son to the Falcons game last night. It was amazing, but like I don't seen 1 o'clock very often. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm struggling, man. I feel like I'm definitely crashing as the show here is coming to a close, but we're almost there, almost at the finish line. I've had some great conversation with you guys today. Appreciate you guys being part of the show by calling in and kind of telling us where you're at right now, telling us how you feel. It's really been nice to get your perspective. The holidays will be coming up here in no time whatsoever. The rainy season has been in and out. So what you need to do is you need to go downstairs, check out your basement or crawl space. If you're doing some organizing or just getting things situated around the house, the last thing you want to do is head into winter with mold or mildew in your home. That's why Be Dry is here to help. Be Dry has been serving this community for 60 years. They're the largest waterproofing company in the country and the only company with a solution that stops all 5 ways water can enter your foundation. They also offer the strongest lifetime warranty in the business, and they're offering 12 months interest-free. That's right, 12 months interest-free, so you have some cash on hand to still have some fun this fall before the holidays arrive here sooner than later. Call Be Dry now to get the job done right, warranty, and the best price. Call 942-1976 or visit BeDryAlabama.com. Guys, the G5 just can't have nice things.
Oh,
I mean, that's where we're at right now.
That's
like,
a Taylor Swift song, by the way, too.
G5 can't have nice things?
No, this is why we can't have nice things.
Thank you.
So just sprinkle that in there.
Okay.
I was about to ask because that's, but it's like, here we are sitting there thinking to ourselves. And look, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I'm pretty excited about seeing a G5 team have a chance. Like, I think they'll get rolled. Just to be honest with you, I don't think the game's going to be competitive between the G5 team and the team that finishes 5th and loses the SEC championship or the Big Ten championship. Like, I don't think it's going to be competitive, but it doesn't mean I'm not excited for them. But man, a lot of the goodwill that they've built up here in the first month of the season all came crashing down this past weekend. Memphis, fresh off of a defensive performance for the ages in which they completely shut down the Florida State Seminoles, who won last week, I might add.
There we go. Winless no more.
They beat Cal, so that transitive property. Florida State beat Cal. Cal beat Auburn. Florida State could beat Auburn. I
don't think you needed the transitive property for that, but okay.
Gotcha. Okay. Perfect. Anyways, Memphis, fresh off of shutting down Florida State, they lose 56. That's right. 56-44 to Navy.
Navy, yes. Navy scored 56 points, dog.
Yes, they hung half a hunch on Memphis. You got Northern Illinois, just a couple weeks removed from beating the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and taking them, I mean, really playing them well along both lines of scrimmage. I mean, winning the game, not like flukily winning the game, like they really won the game. Well, they lose in overtime to Buffalo. Toledo absolutely backhanded Mississippi State last week. I mean, just slapped them right straight across the face. And it was never really all that competitive. They were up 100-0 at halftime, it felt like. Well, they go and lose to Western Kentucky. It's crazy. We've seen Boise play Oregon close. We've seen UNLV, who is undefeated and has beaten a couple P5 teams and has more coming up, by the way. I think UNLV plays Syracuse in a couple weeks, but UNLV is well positioned. We see James Madison, who looked as average as the day is long in the first 2 weeks of the season, go and hang 70 on North Carolina. 70. 7-0 in what was a bit of a stunner. Mac Brown, I mean, all types of reports that he retired in the locker room. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't seem right. Somebody might have misunderstood what was said in there. All of a sudden they come back. Mac Brown's not retiring. He's not stepping down. He just said if he can't get it fixed, he'll step down. So it's like, well, it's not fixed, but it ain't officially dead yet.
It ain't dead yet.
No. And then you have Liberty, who is currently 4-0, having not played a soul. So we're going to run into the same conundrum as everyone else. We're going to get to the end. You're going to have a 1-loss Boise or a 1-loss James Madison or a 1-loss Memphis, maybe a 2-loss Memphis being measured against an undefeated Liberty, and Liberty will have played nobody. So here we are yet again, the G5 conundrum, but we'll see how it all unfolds. A lot still left on the table for a lot of these teams. And of course, if you want to make the playoff, you got to win your conference. And we're a long way from that point being decided just yet, but not a good week after the G5 had really picked up a lot of steam in the last few weeks. Not a good week for the teams that had some big wins against Power 5 programs the last couple weeks. The Big 12 also, the Big 12's wild, isn't it? Like absolutely wild. You have Kansas State who crushes Arizona last week, gets absolutely smoked by BYU, 38-9, and just a complete and utter beatdown from start to finish. You have Baylor, who has Colorado on the ropes, only to give up a last-second heave. Colorado ultimately goes on to win in overtime. Kansas is 1-3, is yet to beat an FBS team, and they were the 4th favorite according to Vegas odds coming into the season. It's like, then you got BYU, Iowa State, and UCF that are all undefeated, and like Utah. It's just, the Big 12's insane. I mean, it's just like, just wake me up at the end of the season and tell me what happened to the Big 12, because you'll never be able to convince me that any of this stuff is real. It's really insane.
It is, man. And then you see how Baylor, I guess you'd say, fumbled the bag there at the end against Colorado. God almighty.
Yeah, I would say it was disappointing to fumble it into the end zone. Not a great way to lose the game.
Nope.
But hey, Travis Hunter does Travis Hunter things. That's the way it goes. All right, when we come back, Bo on the show, I will not give you a bad box score today, just so you know. I won't do it. But we will read through James Madison's offensive performance against North Carolina, because you honestly will not believe your ears. Next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back. McElroy, Cubelic in the morning. Jocks 94.5 here. Final segment of the show. I don't think I've ever quite seen a box score. Now, I'll be first one to admit, I did not get a chance to watch the game. It was on at the same time as us. We were at noon Eastern time, Clemson, NC State. And while that thing got sideways, it didn't get anywhere near as sideways as James Madison at North Carolina. James Madison, 53 first half points.
Yep.
Honestly, he's a bad coach.
53 first half points. Yeah, Bob Chesney clearly can't coach him. Only 17 in the second half. But do you realize how absurd that is? Like, just how insane that is to score 53 and a half. In a half. North Carolina and NC State, by the way.
Yep.
Giving up a combined 100-plus points in the first half of their games this past weekend. I mean, what are we doing here? It's insane.
Not playing defense.
Yeah, like in public, like people can see you.
Right.
Just to kind of sum up the performance, James Madison, they went for a cool 611 yards of offense.
Okay.
They were actually outgained. North Carolina went for 616. So these two teams combined for 12-27 in the ball game. They also combined for nearly 750 passing yards, which isn't, 850 passing yards. I misspoke and did some misguided math. I didn't carry the one there. That's 850 passing yards. North Carolina turned it over 5 times. Like, what is going on with the amount of turnovers in college football right now? Like, it is insane, the amount of turnovers that are being created in some places, guys.
Bad ball.
You think?
A bad ball.
All right, we'll be back tomorrow. 3-man front is next. Promise to get a good night's sleep and to wake up tomorrow feeling joyful because there's a lot to still be excited about. We got a great game coming up, Bama and Georgia this weekend. We'll put the pieces back together of the Auburn puzzle. It's next tomorrow, 7 to 10. 3-man front is next.